things are a mess going into next season. You know, how are your characters going to deal with their new situations where Finch is on the run? Fosco, you're like by yourself now. The only one that's still, Fosco's like the only one that can keep his own name. So how does that play out as the season very first begins?
Well, I think those are the questions that the writers asked themselves when they sat down to commence work on season 4. And, you know, how can we, you know, here's the set of problems we were left with at the end of last season. What's an entertaining way to begin to solve those problems? And of course, our heroes are busy and resourceful even in the worst of circumstances, and sometimes funny. So they'll begin to find ways to live. You know, you adjust to whatever the box you put in.
Right.
So now that their behavior and their movements are so much more restricted, communications, meetings, everything like that is so much more dicey now. There's a period of adjustment where they have to learn to live within allowable means.
It's gonna be like an 80s spy craft action going on.
Well, they're more spy-ish now. They have to be, because they fear rightly constant surveillance, and they can't be too careful. Perfectly innocent things could bring you into Samaritan's view.
Michael, last season, that episode with Grace being kidnapped, I thought was a great standout episode for Finch. And when they had the exchange and you had that moment with her, there were tears in my eyes. Was that a highlight for you for that season in Finch?
Yeah, it was fun. Fun to work with my real life spouse, and I thought it was written in a moving way and a big challenge for Mr. Finch. Yeah, I think he was shaken, and it was, you know, a portent of worse to come.
I was shaken when I watched it.
How is Fosco going to help the team?
Well, he's the only one on the grid, so I mean, I would imagine that Fosco's going to be providing a lot of the information that the team would normally have, but they no longer have access to. So I think they'll be relying on him a little more heavily this year.
Immediately when
go ahead.
No. Where do we find both of your characters early on when the season begins?
Well, Fosco's back at the 8th precinct. He does get a new partner though, which is kind of cool. So it'll be really interesting to see how the audience embraces that, the idea of that.
We will find Mr. Finch at his new day job.
Okay.
A day job. Can you say what he's going to be doing?
It's good though. It's not any great stretch. It's not like he's an astronaut or anything like that. He's doing something that he's perfectly qualified to do.
Michael, you once played the Joker, so I was just wondering, when I first started watching the show, I sort of saw this sort of correlation with person of interest in sort of comics, basically, you know, with Reese being the vigilante, and then you had villains, that were kind of like rogues galleries in a comic book. I was wondering if you ever saw that correlation.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I've been thinking that since the get-go, and you see it played out in subtle ways in the design of the show. That's why they're so careful that everybody has a particular silhouette. Everybody has, because, you know, heroes in the comics, they look the same in every frame. And even the way our show is edited, sometimes, like the fights, we don't see all the blood and gristle of every beat of a fight. We kind of go tap, 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 like that, you know, like the frames in a comic book. And I think we are a kind of superheroes without capes or masks, you know, but people with extraordinary skills and who benefit from good luck and good timing very, very often.
Kevin, will there be any romance for Fusco this season?
I think there will actually. I think there is going to be some. I think we might see Rhonda back actually, but there's been a lot of talk about that. So.
Love Rhonda.
Or the supermodel.
Oh, the supermodel, exactly.
I think you guys.
She's still calling me though. She won't let it go.
Do you think Finch regrets revealing that he was alive to Grace, or at any point, or does he really know he made what he thinks is the right choice to keep his status secret?
I think he meant for her never to know. Otherwise, it's all just a painful joke and will hurt her for the rest of her life, wondering what the hell really happened there. And I'm sure he wouldn't wish that hard on her.
How is Finch dealing with, he kind of got all these people into all of this, and now it's not exactly gone totally helping people out the way it weren't able to stop Samaritan. How do you think he's, dealing with that?
I think he's ready to put it in their hands and walk away. Like a guy that starts a good business and then at some point he says, I can't do it anymore. You guys go ahead, do what you're going to do because I'm out. I'm now out.
Michael, that moment where you had that encounter with the serial killer and the glasses came off, and you almost got the sense that, your glasses are just for show, and then Finch has that moment where he yells at him, you're sick and you need help. I'm almost wondering, is Finch saying that to that guy, or is he also saying it to himself?
You're paying close attention to the show, and you have now crossed the line into making the show richer in your own mind than was even intended by the creative team. But I think that's a great place to go. Well done.
At this stage in the show, how much input do you have into your characters and stuff? Do you go to the writers with anything, or do you have a query, a script, or?
No, our role is more interpretive. I mean, sometimes we'll have a conversation about, does this seem logical, or is it consistent with things I've done before? Is it true to the character? Can I physically accomplish it? Those sorts of things. But no, those scripts come down to us highly polished, and we are meant to learn the lines on the page and say them as written. It's kind of
sometimes, like I pitched the episode where Fusco goes on a date. I had pitched that to the writers.
Did you? That's a great idea.
Yeah, and Greg Plaidman said to me, he said, he goes, I've been doing this a long time, he said, and I've gotten a lot of suggestions from actors. He goes, and yours is the first one I'm going to implement. And he wrote the scene with Fusco going on a date with Rhonda. But to show you how bright our fan base is, I had pitched it was twofold. What it was that Fusco was going to fall for this woman, and then he realizes that she is a mole for HR. Where Fusco was gonna come to her house and surprise her, and he sees Simmons coming out of her apartment, So after Fusco had went on the date, like the next day, people started tweeting, I hope she's not a mole for HR. And Greg's like, I just killed that, I do,